I remember our daughter's birth, my firstborn. We'd seen a movie and then gone home to sleep, and I was awakened a few hours later, suddenly drenched in our bed. The waters of birth had broken. Powerful contractions began. This child was going to be born of the flesh, my groaning flesh, and of surprisingly copious water. Bob drove us in the February cold from Newton down towards Brigham and Women's Hospital, the shortest time we've ever made going down Route 9, strangely silent and empty. But I even made him stop at the red lights nonetheless. The hospital, when we arrived, was efficient and brightly lit. We didn't know what we were doing, we parents, but those around us did. They guided us, coached us, and in just a handful of hours, our daughter was born. Because the medical team feared that she might have aspirated when my water broke, they swept her away for a little bit, engaged in some extra processes and tests to make sure our baby could breathe. But soon she was back in my arms, back in Bob's arms, and tucked away in a little bassinet next to my bed. Sometime later that day, I was dimly aware of my girl swept away again, and from the corner of my eye out beyond my room, I saw there was this little doll-sized breathing mask placed over her nose and mouth. She just needed a little more oxygen, a nurse reassured me, very common. I placed the memory far down, the long list of worries that were starting to accumulate in my exhausted new parent mind. Were they really sending us home within 24 hours, alone, as if they think we know how to care for her? 6 weeks later, I had transformed into a confident mother, or that's what I hoped it appeared. I lugged my daughter, asleep in her car seat, into the doctor's office for that routine 6-week visit. My girl was growing. She seemed well. By now, I could sometimes get out of my robe and slippers before 1 p.m. Victory! I knew that she could stay asleep in the warm, foggy bathroom while I took a shower. Victory! My second didn't get that treatment. The visit surely would be routine, I thought, to this pediatrician. I had learned a lot. I had read a lot. I might even have wanted to impress the doctor with my calm and wise way of mothering. So as he listened with his stethoscope to my daughter's chest, I bantered with a witty bit and a little smile. Well, doctor, does she have a heart or not? He listened longer and then he cut to the chase. Your daughter seems to have a heart problem. We'll get some more tests at Children's Hospital. Have you ever noticed her lips become a little purple, a little blue maybe, or darkness around her mouth? Well, yes, maybe. I don't know. That color, he said, is because she isn't always getting enough oxygen. Breath of life. Breath of life. We don't live without air, without breathing. But how often do we really think about it? Most newborns instinctively breathe in and out when they emerge from that watery womb and enter air for the first time. We don't need to be taught how to breathe. If something is placed over an infant's face, a baby only minutes old will instinctively thrash about to remove the obstacle so she can breathe. As soon as we're born, we know how vital breath and air are. Science calls this an involuntary reaction done without thinking, keeping us alive. It's like our heart beating. We don't have to think about it to have it happen. All of us our whole lives long, breathing in and out. Every hour we're awake. Every hour we're asleep, taking in the air that surrounds us. This invisible, unseen air. Yet despite how essential air and breath are, most of the time we're completely unaware of them, aren't we? We don't think much about the air, don't notice our own breathing until, that is, something goes awry. when that chest cold settles deep in our lungs and we need to be propped up on pillows at night, when the hacking cough leaves us short of breath and we can't talk long on the phone, when the air high up in the mountains is so thin it's hard to jog, when the pollution in China or LA is so thick it's hard to walk, when the temperature in Boston is so low, like today, that each breath is frigid and piercing, then we notice how precious clean and cool air around us is, and how strangled we feel when we can't take it in, when each gasp we try to inhale yields too little of what we need to thrive, to survive. Maybe Nicodemus was short of breath, or at least aware that Jesus had something he, Nicodemus, lacked, more energy perhaps. Perhaps a part of Nicodemus even wanted to show this new teacher how calm and open he was, unlike those other agitated Pharisees unable to countenance the newcomer. Maybe Nicodemus went to see Jesus the way I went to the 6-week routine exam with our pediatrician, assuming everything is generally fine, but willing to tweak what I was doing if it needed be. Because Nicodemus is a respected teacher and a leader among others. So Nicodemus graciously says right away to Jesus, well, no one could do these signs that you do apart from the presence of God. A show of respect by Nicodemus. Decorum would bring a reciprocal response. But Jesus cuts to the chase. You seem out of breath, Nicodemus. You're not taking in all you need. To be fully alive, you need to be breathing deeply of the Spirit that's all around us. Always has been, always will. The Spirit invisible as the air. People can be dead while living. You, Nicodemus, are not being fully nourished. I think there's a problem with your heart. Nicodemus is caught off guard, as I was with our pediatrician. Wait, there's something wrong with my heart, with my center, with my soul, with something as basic as my breathing. Nicodemus, Jesus asks, have you ever noticed yourself being a little blue? Well, yes, maybe. I don't know. And then follows an odd exchange between Jesus and Nicodemus that is a debate, really, about how to fully live. How to live abundantly, how to live with a heart and soul strong enough to thrive even when under stress. A way to live with no purple lips and no weak heart. It's a metaphor that equates the Spirit with air, invisible yet all around us and essential for life. Each deep breath we take of the Spirit could enable Nicodemus to live as Jesus does, stronger, complete, whole, healthy enough to himself give away strength and healing to others. That is, so long as his heart is functioning well. And getting the heart right can require big changes, maybe surgery. In Jesus' day, it was probably tantamount to having to be born again with a new heart that could pump around the air we need. Do you want to live differently, Nicodemus? Live more fully? Rumi, the ancient Sufi poet, writes this. With passion, play. With passion, work. With passion, make love. With passion, eat and drink and dance and play. Why look like a dead fish in this ocean of God? Why gasp for breath when the Spirit is like air all around us? Have you ever noticed in your own life that feeling of being a little out of breath, not physically but spiritually? Feeling at least partly dead, though we're living, drained, though we still are breathing every day, wondering if what we consider life is only a pale shadow of the real thing. Perhaps you're just starting out in your life, trying to fit in, to find your talents, figure out what should I be doing now, and you wonder about your uneasiness, the uncertainty of your future, and you ask, is this how life will always be? Or you're in midlife and you survey your goals and titles, your money and relationships, and one day realize, I thought there'd be more to life by now. Or you're in your older years. No, your steps have slowed, but life doesn't seem over at all. So you ask, isn't there more still ahead? This can't be all that I'll experience. Sometimes we can be alive, taking the breaths in and out, but also feel dead, at least in part. Nicodemus may have wondered if there could be more to his life, too. He couldn't say that openly. It's rarely safe to admit that because people are going to tell you, buck up. We all go through that every once in a while. You're fine. But Nicodemus wondered enough that he sought out Jesus, though under the cover of night, when others wouldn't see his angst. And then Jesus says the unexpected. There is more to life. There's another realm of living apart from what we see, a fresh perspective available to you that transforms competitors into companions, enemies to neighbors, the unforgivable back to kin. A different way of being that unites us all, connects us, that lets us breathe more deeply. Can you open yourself to that, Nicodemus? Open yourself to a totally new perspective, to be born afresh. And when he's asked that by Jesus, Nicodemus struggles. He's so startled. Go into my mama's womb again? That'd be a trick at my age, he jokes. I joke to the pediatrician, does my daughter have a heart in there? And the doctor keeps listening intently with his stethoscope to my baby's chest for a very long time. Neither I nor Nicodemus want to hear what we're told. Pretty hard to take in new ways of thinking, new outlooks on life, especially if you've lived assuming that everything is basically the same. Even when we have sought out an opinion, as Nicodemus sought out Jesus, or I went to that 6-week appointment, we rarely expect that the answer we're going to get is, you need to radically change things. You might ask a doctor about a recurring pain, or a counselor for life advice, or a mentor's judgment on your career. But we balk if the response is going to force us to change and take big risks. That pain means you need heart surgery, says the doctor, or you can't be as active again. You need to face your behavior honestly, the therapist reports, or your relationships will never thrive. You need to get out of your field, the mentor advises, or you'll never use your true talents. You need to be born anew, Jesus says, or you'll never know life's true abundance. Well, how is it done? Face the hard thing we need, like surgery that repairs a heart, therapy that repairs a relationship, and then maybe we begin to notice the Spirit all around us already like air. We don't ignore it anymore, take it for granted. We try to be intentional in prayer, meditation, breathing deeply of this new spirit of life. Try to be open and experience a different level of consciousness, aware of your connectedness to the ultimate, to every other creature. Break free of our self-imposed boundaries that we live in. Breathe in the air. Breathe it in deeply, noticing its cool, fresh delight. And when the Spirit becomes active in your life, says Jesus, it'll be like the wind, which you do not control, pushing you to places you didn't expect, relationships that surprise you, convictions of others' worth where before you'd only seen faults. As we can't see air, we don't see the Spirit, but you'll observe its impact. You know the wind is blowing because the treetops wave and the boat flies across the waters. Put up your sails, catch the wind. Some time ago, I visited a woman who was having trouble breathing due to an illness. It was very frightening for her. She felt lonely in a room by herself at the facility. Will the staff remember I'm here? Return as promised. Hear me when I call. She tried to trust, but it was very hard. Her fear felt overwhelming. Then, well, it's ridiculous, she told me. What? Well, then I heard God's voice right next to me. And she pointed at her bedstand. Well, what did God's voice say? Now the tears are falling, falling, falling. The voice said, we'll take care of you. We will take care of you? Yes, God and the medical people in my family. How did that feel? I could just let out my breath. And I wasn't worried anymore. But it's hard to keep remembering that when I get anxious again. So what I do is I just breathe in deeply and then let it out. And then I remember the promise, we'll take care of you. Sort of like being born anew.